Hello, good afternoon. It is Thursday, February 6th. I am Rob, that developer dad, and my robot is not looking directly at me. Sometimes my robot has trouble maintaining eye contact, just like me. Um, so, this morning we talked about what I had been doing while I was offline the first half of the week. I have things moving very, very quickly towards the private beta. I'm doing things like assigning custom domain names to the app, to the Azure application itself. Running into some problems with authentication with that. And the documentation and all of the online help that I've been trying to get isn't super clear. I am really not familiar with like admin, like cloud administrative type things, and it's giving me fits. So that's neither here nor there. What we're doing is we're coding today, or this afternoon. So this morning we started talking about some features that I kind of triaged out of these are really important and I have to do them before I go live. Um, Now that I am moving forward into the public beta, or the private beta, I should say, period. It's time for me to start knocking some of these items that I had deprioritized. It's time for me to start building on those. I want to, before we go too much further, post about the project. And if this content is generously supported by viewers like you, help that developer dad feed the cats at https coffee.com/that developer dad. Thanks. Boop. All right. So we started working on delete NPC, and I'm implementing this as a soft delete type thing rather than just like push the delete button that we'll add soon and just gone. Because sometimes people will fat finger or hit something with the wrong thumb or whatever, and it's, oh no. So what I'm doing is I'm just tagging that object in storage as having been deleted. And if somebody does it by accident, they can always like reach out through a support link or something like that and ask me to remove or undelete something that, fix their mistake. So this morning I got where is my VS Code thing? Oh yeah, release notes, whatever. There's that. So there's program CS. I'll have to deal with that later on. So we got it filtering out NPCs that have been deleted in the list here. And there's the existing thing. You can still see Gromac here. That's what's running up in Azure. So I'm going to flip this out. Goodbye. And as we work, we'll hit the localhost version. So just to show what's going on here, I'm going to get rid of these breakpoints. Delete, delete. I don't know what this breakpoint is. Yeah, you're out of here. That's a test app thing. Get lost. Let's run this. Get rid of that. this. I can close GitHub out. And it already knows who I am. So there's that. It says, hello, Rob. And we're loading our NPCs. We only have one copy of Gromac here. So cool. The delete logic that we built in, or the filtering logic that we added up in our data access layer, or the resource access layer, is present. Groovy. So the next thing we have to do, we've already got the deleted date property on the table entity. So let's get rid of that window. And I'm going to pop into resource access. And first thing we're going to do is update the interface. NPCAccess. And save NPC. All right. Filter NPC. Load NPC. Task. Op result of bool delete NPC async. String user ID. We'll make that the second one. GUID NPC ID. And there we go. And that's really all we need here. But I want to add some notes about what this does. Summary. /summary. Marks. If the input parameters are valid, this method sets the deleted date property of the identified NPC to the current UTC date. This will prevent that NPC from being returned in the list or from being loaded in the UI, but will not remove the NPC from storage. Excuse me. Whoop. Param name. Returns. We need another param name. Okay. Save. This is our V1. It is in fact our V1. So we can shrink filter for now. We can shrink load. We can shrink save. And these are privates. All right. Public async task with an op result of type bool. Delete NPC async. New success equals false. Add error. User ID is required to delete an NPC. Calculate partition key. Go get it. Partition key equals partition key. NPC equals NPC ID. And e dot user ID equals user ID. And this actually isn't what I want to do. What I really want to do is build the table client, NPC ID equals NPC ID. Okay, that's not what I'm doing there. I'm doing what I want to do somewhere else. Perhaps in save. We'll take a look in a second. All I have to do is find the darn thing. Here it is. Here's save. Just key prefix. Okay, it's just doing a table query. All right, that's fine. So what we'll do down here in delete, building our table client, doing all this stuff. Stored NPC. That feels really goofy. It really, really does, doesn't it? Var NPC entity equals user objects dot. Is there a find or fetch? Create async, delete, get entity. If exists, async. The partition key and the NPC ID dot toString. And that should be a nullable. It is. And we're going to await this. And now it should be a nullable. No, it's still a nullable response. NPC table entity. I'm going to rename this to lookup. If NPC entity lookup dot has value, else NPC not found. Cool. Var NPC entity equals NPC lookup dot value, UTC now, upsert entity async. And NPC entity lookup dot value is not equal to null. There we go. Now we know that it's not null. Success equals true. Yeah. Op result. Success equals false. I like to set these things explicitly. success equals false. Op result dot payload equals success. Success equals false. Operation result dot success equal dir payload equals success. And that is that. All right. Save. Pardon me. And that is the update to the access provider. Next stop. Managers. Game Tools Townsfolk Managers, Contracts, Townsfolk Manager. We've got generate from options, get NPC options, save, load, filter. Task, op, result, IEnumerable. No, it's not going to be an IEnumerable. It's going to be an op result with a Boolean. Delete townsperson async. There we go. Okay. Returns an op result containing a Boolean payload indicating success of the operation or any errors that were encountered during execution. Save-a-roo. Okay. So now we can come out to the Townsfolk Manager, which is very grumpy because it is no longer a valid iTownsfolk Manager implementation because it's missing an implementation to delete townsperson async. So these are all privates. Public, generate, public, filter, load, save. All right, groovy. So let's spin out here. Actually, rather than doing it that way, because sometimes VS Code gets a little weird. Public async task, which is an operation result of type Boolean. Delete townsperson async. Manager result is a new op result of bool. Delete result is that. If it was successful, we're good. If not, we're going to migrate. We're going to rip through all the errors and add them. Manager result dot payload equals false. And then we're going to return the manager result. This is an incredibly straightforward thing. We don't have much to mess around with there at all. So the managers are good. Let's spin up the API and come into character workloads. And let's just collapse as much of this as we possibly can. This is I. Yes, it is. Get JSON. This method is being deprecated. Oh, this interface is a bloody mess. I don't like it. Task of op result bool townsperson async. And we've got the user ID. Groovy. I'm not going to add a comment to this. Not right now, anyway. And we'll load up character workloads. Now let's pop all of these shut. Actually, let's second guessing myself. Let's come down to Townsfolk Manager because we're going to be stepping through this stuff. If not this afternoon, then definitely tomorrow morning. So here's this. Drop that there. Let's come up to character workloads. And it's grumpy because I haven't defined the delete townsperson async yet. Now this one, it needs to do something a little bit different. So save NPC. It's got the resource result with the townsperson. What's in that resource result? Ah, yes, with updated quotas. So I actually need to go over to character workloads and here's generate attributes. It's a resource. Here's save NPC. This is going to be a resource result that carries a bool. One generic, two generic, three generic. Yep. Okay. Oh, does resource result require? Where T is class. Okay. So we can't do a resource result. This is his texting. Just a second. All right. So resource result isn't going to work for us here. But what we really care about is returning a quota container. Because over here, so there's save NPC, filter, load. public async task op result containing quota container, maybe delete townsperson async, set all of that stuff up. Var manager result equals await NPC manager.delete townsperson async. Pass the townsperson ID and the user ID. Var BFF payload equals new quota container. No. Var BFF result equals new op result of quota container. There we go. If mgr result dot was successful, we need to update the user's storage quota. Else, manager result dot copy errors to the BFF result. And mgr var quotas equals await and BFF result dot payload equals quotas result dot payload. All right, and that just, it refreshes the quota counts from excuse me, from the thing, from storage. Load user profile, get upgrade URL. Where is update quota? I think all of that stuff is happening in here. Save NPC, var quota update, consume quota async, user storage quota ID, one user ID. Okay. Boppity boppity boo. Yeah. Okay, so down under delete, we need to go var quota update result equals await usage manager dot release quota async excuse me, and it needs the quota ID. Which is a holdover from when we had a relational database, but no longer really matters. Let's swing up to consume quota async here. Here's this, and I'm just going to pop this down onto a new line there so that I can see it better. User storage quota ID. Where did that come from? That's a parameter. var. We're going to do this. Get rid of this. var user quotas. Get rid of this double var here. Dot payload. All right. And int storage quota ID equals user quotas dot NPC storage dot quota ID. And we're going to pass storage quota ID. The amount released is 1, and the user ID. BFF result dot payload equals user quotas. If quota update result was successful, then we are returning that quota container. Otherwise, copy errors to BFF result and BFF result.payload equals user quotas, the unupdated version. And API result doesn't exist, but BFF result does. And you know what? I've been using API result as the naming pattern for all of these things all along. Let's flip this back to API result. There. Now I'm nice and consistent. There's that. I don't have any compiler warnings. Save it. Let's build. We'll rebuild. Just to make sure nothing awful is going on. Let's just dismiss all of those. All right. Okay. So we can close out this interface. Got our townsfolk manager. Let's drop a breakpoint right here. NPCAccess as your table provider. Character workloads. Actually, wait, we're going to go in order of invocation here along the stack. Character workloads, townsfolk manager to access provider. Last stop. The UI. Blazor. Components, new. Services. NPC service proxy. Here's filter townsfolk. Load NPC. Load user limits. This is save NPC. And let's say public async task op result of quota container. Is delete NPC async. And it needs the NPC ID and the user ID. Yep. Op result quota container proxy result equals new op result of quota container. NPC API delete NPC async. I believe it's delete townsperson. Yep. Copy that. Paste that. There we go. If API result was successful, API payload equals API result.payload. API payload is not equal to null. UI payload is the user limits model. Oh, that's right. It's a user limits model, isn't it? Yep. So this becomes a user limits model. There we go. And then we return the proxy result. All right. That should be about all we need to do from the service proxy point of view. And let's see here. Get AI description, get NPC options, yeah. Load NPC. Who is calling you? Create NPC page model. Oh, that's load. NPC services. Load NPC. Let's see what's happening here. User. Private async. Who's calling you? Wait load NPC. On NPC list, view clicked. Okay, here we go. So, let's close that out. And let's add a public async task on NPC list delete clicked GUID NPC ID. All right. We don't need the current NPC. We don't need the page state or anything like that. Show list. So call the private method to kick off the delete. Refresh the list by triggering the show list. Click. Yeah, that'll work. Yeah, state is changed. Show for page state. This method is marked for deletion. Let's just nuke it. Get rid of that right now. Load selectable NPC options. This is all the fancy, crazy code behind stuff that I wrote for the Blazor page while I didn't really know how to do stuff like that. Does filter NPC live here? Load NPC. Guard NPC services exist. App contact. Guard user. Log error. Okay. Now where the hell was I? This code is an unmaintainable mess. Context, page state, NPC, selectable options, user options, reroll, start over, on save, on create new, list view clicked. Here we are. Let's spin down to load NPC. And I'm just going to kind of crib what I'm doing in here. Private async task delete NPC async GUID NPC ID. Okay, we definitely need a guard. NPC services exists and the user exists. Here we go. NPC services. Delete NPC. Is that an actual factual thing? We better take a look over here. Here's load NPC. Copy that. Paste that. We're not going to... I really oughtn't be throwing exceptions here. Proxy result is null. I'm just going to do a log error. Yeah. What's this? Guard NPC. Here we are. Log error. Color line number. Whatever, I don't care about that. Error ID. String message. For each var error in proxy result dot errors. Let's aggregate errors do for me. Oh yeah, we're gonna do that. String errors equals proxy results dot aggregate errors. Dot was successful equals false. That's what I want there. String errors. What does that actually do for me? Append line error dot value is b.toString. Okay. Copy errors to. Add error. Nope. I'm going to do it this way. For each var error in proxy result dot errors. And we're just going to do error.key, error.value, 266. Get rid of that. And that's really about all we got to do there. Save. Now, we got to come up to where in the NPC list view clicked. Let's see where this guy's referenced. And that should be there's the create NPC page model. Create NPC razor. Let's go to components, pages. Create NPC razor. View NPC handler, current page state. So we're going to have to go into NPC list in a second. Partials, NPC list. And probably it's C# as well. And right up here at the tippy top, so here's our logger, new NPC handler, view NPC handler. Create NPC page states. Let's take a peek at the razor itself. Task host, this visibility, yeah. Name, detail, item actions. that on view NPC clicked. Let's go to the definition here. Here we are. And let's run up here. And we need to set a parameter. Public action. It takes in a GUID. Delete NPC handler. Get set. Now, let's take a peek back here. Go to definition. And I got to add a public async task on delete NPC clicked, GUID NPC ID, await NPC handler.invoke, await execute filter. Cool. I feel like I'm doing something over here. Okay, so that's good. NPC page model. I don't think I actually need this because I'm going to work that from the handler. And all we're going to do is await delete NPC click or delete NPC async. And then when it comes back to the handler, it's going to refresh execute filter. On delete NPC clicked. Okay, so let's do that. We'll add. Oh, I got to come out to the create NPC and assign delete NPC handler equals on NPC list delete clicked. Okay, it doesn't like that much. Let's go to the definition over here. Copy. Back over here. What are you complaining about? Has the wrong return type. It needs to be a function of GUID and task. This is just an action of GUID. So let's go to the definition here. Oh, you silly goose. No. What are you doing, you goofball? Task got deleted. NPC list razor. Yeah. Loading overlay, app context, notifier. This is actually a func of GUID that returns a task, and it might be null. So we can save that. NPC list razor will come back in and add the button in a minute. Create NPC, that's all good. Save that guy. We are still without problems. That's good. And finally, Here's another button. And let's add, whoops. Now, thinking about the way it looks on the UI. Excuse me. Let's load up the actual app. Here we are. And this is the deployed version, not the local hosted version. So there's that. And there's view right there on the outside. And let's take a look at it on the phone. And I'm going to just sign in as me. View. Now see, on the phone form factor, as you can see here, all the reflection from my window is sucking. That view button is taking up an awful lot of space. Don't love it. For now. For now. Button. Class equals excuse me, show delete. We're going to have to add that in a minute as string shown hidden on delete NPC clicked. Is that delete? Take me to the definition of that class. It will not. That's okay. We'll close the button. You silly goose. Close the button tag. And we got to go to here. And I got to add a property. Public bool. Show delete NPC button. And all that does is a null check on the NPC handler, or on the delete NPC handler. Oh, what did I call it? Copy, paste, save. There we go. There's that. Pencil. I don't know that I like pencil. Let's take a look at, not in the components, but in www.root, I've got a whole file of icons to find here. So we've got castle, light, dark, cat, crystal ball, light, dark, people, potions, quills, roadmaps, scrolls, sign in, sign out, think, tower. Let's just not even put an icon on it. If I find a good icon, I'll incorporate it and we'll add it. But for now, I don't think we need an icon. And let's rebuild. Oh man, it's throwing up all over the darn place. Oh, no, it's just a slow build process. It's okay. But there is at least one problem. There's that. Cool, cool, cool. Save. And yeah, let's rock. Well, I better rebuild again because things are silly. Make it so. We're just going to try this once. If it works, woohoo. If it doesn't work, we're going to troubleshoot it tomorrow morning. And then there's one last thing I need to add here. Probably in the actual place where it's being, the actual UI where we're showing it. C's app development. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute, Jerisa. Give me a few minutes. I just want to talk through what I'm about to do. I want to test the UI for this new delete button. And if it works, fantastic. We will add the "Are you sure" thing tomorrow. If it doesn't work, we'll troubleshoot it tomorrow and then add the "Are you sure?" And then I want to take a look at what Jerisa RS is asking in the chat. And I'll talk about that a little bit first. So, oh, SaaS app? Yeah. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I just want to get this test run, or I want to execute this test against my local machine. Close this old tab. Go into my townsfolk list. All right, we've got view, we've got delete. Let me come down to the bottom of the screen here. And I'm going to pick this dwarf cook who's retired. And I'm going to hit the delete button. And we're going to start hitting breakpoints here. So we've got our breakpoint. Our GUID is set. Bounce. Step in. I'm going to just let her rip until we hit the API. So here's this. Manager result. We're up into the manager. Let's take a look. Down here, I've got 81 stored NPCs. So cool. And we'll go up into the access provider. And calculate partition key. Get entity. Entity lookup. We got that. Our value is our NPC. We're going to set the deleted date, upsert, run, all the way back out to the client. Bring this guy back up. And I suspect that I am somewhere. Create NPC. Okay, those didn't increment. Let's go home and come back. My usage is a little wacky. There's that dwarf explorer, dwarf farmer. Here's that dwarf barkeep who is retired. And something's going on. Something ain't right. But I should be able to look at new tab, and if you'll pardon me, portal, log in here. I gotta flip tenants. I gotta switch which directory I'm talking to. So, Jeressa, to answer your question, and this is, I feel really, really bad about this answer that I'm about to give you. What would I choose, and why would I choose React Native or Flutter for a SaaS app? I assume you're targeting a mobile first app, like it would be an iPhone app or a Android app, rather than something like a web app or what have you, right? And honestly, it depends on where you want to go with stuff. Flutter, as I understand it, is sort of its own animal in terms of programming language and everything like that. Flutter looks a lot like several other programming languages, and it's a super flexible framework. And from what I've seen, it looks like it can do both web and uh, sort of native applications and stuff like that. Have you been, are you already a developer, or are you learning development to build this SaaS application? Like what scenario are you in? Is it just you've never programmed before and you have an idea? Okay, you're learning development to build this. That said, I would say, okay, you're completely new. I'm I'm like 25 years into this biz, and I've had to learn a ton over the past 6 months while I've been bringing this concept of mine to life. This that UI that you've seen me flitting around in, this thing. Yeah, I know. Stop that. There we go. So while I've been building this thing, I've learned a ton, but it's more the stuff that I've learned is more UI development and managing all the twiddly bits in Azure on the back end and everything like that. What I would say as a new developer is I don't think you should try to use a native mobile device application as your learning lab, so to speak. You can, but there's an awful lot of stuff, especially if you're trying to do it as a software as a service thing. There are some pit traps that I don't want you to step in, because stepping in those pit traps really, really, really hurts a lot. Um, what I would do is honestly start off with C Sharp and ASP.NET. Because you can do a lot with ASP.NET MVC and so on and so forth. But C Sharp, it gets compiled and installed as like just a blob of nonsense on the server, and then the computers know what that nonsense says and are able to translate the stuff that looks like nonsense to you and me into stuff that the computers can do and make the magic happen. And then in front of that C Sharp stuff, you can drop React Native or React web front end, or you could build your entire front end in Flutter and all of that stuff. Um, a lot of people say just start with JavaScript and go to React and learn Node and build your back end in Node and all of that stuff. But that gives me some serious security yuckies. Um, the idea of using something like JavaScript on the server side to handle all of my security and everything, just it gives me a panic attack. Maybe it's because I'm an old guy and JavaScript in my mind is probably the least secure thing you could work in. But and maybe things are better than they used to be. But as far as learning things, um, honestly, I would start off with something like C Sharp and .NET to kind of get your brain wrapped around thinking like a programmer. Because C Sharp and .NET have a lot of things, a lot of the way you work with the code in that environment. It's more tightly constrained. Like the language itself is far more strict than say JavaScript or Python or whatever. Like it won't let you perform arithmetic on strings. So like I couldn't go Gromac plus 5 and get the result Gromac 5 like I would in JavaScript. I'd get an error message. And those error messages, yeah, they can be frustrating, but they also guide you in the correct direction about thinking about your code. Um, it's not to say that going JavaScript first is necessarily a bad path. There's tons of people out in the world that have built their entire careers off of flavors of JavaScript and the different frameworks and so on and so forth. Um, Considering that you are learning development to build this idea of yours, of the two choices you named, I would go the React route. There's a ton of tutorials and materials out there of going from zero to hero with React. I don't know the tutorial landscape for Flutter very well. I've looked at some of the documentation and so on and so forth, and it's a lovely UI framework and platform, but it's not something that I've needed to dig into because I'm not building native apps. This is just a pure web app. Runs in Safari or Chrome on your phone, runs in Safari, Chrome, Edge, Firefox on your desktop, whatever, and it's the same bloody code base. Um, but if I wanted to go to a native application, I would probably go down the route of React, talking to an API backend that already, all the code for that API backend already exists for me because I've already written it. But yeah, in answer to your question, as somebody who is new to development, I think the learning curve and the community resources that exist for React are definitely going to give you a better experience. Um, and it's not because I know that the community and the resources for Flutter are not as good. It's because I don't know. I'm only speaking from my personal knowledge. I'm actually in the process of learning React on the side as well because I'm having a hell of a time getting hired to sling code for people without knowing React. And of course, as soon as I've learned React, everybody's going to be looking for an Angular developer. And I'll just throw my hands up in the air and go hand out cards at Walmart. But I feel like React is a useful skill set to have anyway, because there's things in React that I actually like the way they behave a lot more than they do in Blazor, which is what I'm using for this. Um, I would not take the code that I was writing in this session that you kind of flew into to see. I wouldn't take that as an example of what .NET programming looks like because this code in here in the Blazor app down in the UI, it's a mess. I didn't know what I was doing when I wrote half of this code because it's been a decade since I've done any serious UI work. A better view of what .NET code would look like is probably, let's take a look in the HTTP access provider. So this is a better view of what .NET code would look like. And it's pretty straightforward. Like, that's a lot of lines of code, but it's just because I'm doing an awful lot of error checking and I'm making sure everything's working right as it executes. And if something goes wrong at the start of the process that I'm running here, I bounce out and return early. And it's just defensive programming type stuff that I do here. But if you take it one piece at a time, it's really, really, really simple once you're used to looking at it. But yeah, to answer your question, I'd say go React, but learn React by itself first, then dig into React Native. And oh yeah, and you know what? You're just 15 years old, and that's awesome. That's fantastic that you're getting into this at 15. You are going to hit the wall over and over and over again. It's gonna happen, I promise. But don't let it get you down. You're gonna run into stuff and you're gonna be pulling at your hair. Like, why doesn't this work? Oh my God, why doesn't this work? And it's just going to be incredibly frustrating. Keep at it. Keep at it. Learn to take big, deep breaths. Oh, listen, I run into like pulling my hair out. Why isn't this working? On the daily. And I've been doing this for professionally for like 25 years. But over time, you'll start to learn from your mistakes. I still make lots of mistakes every day. And you're going to make mistakes all the time. But that's okay. There are no mistakes. There are only happy accidents. Find the Bob Ross channel here on Twitch and just let that play in the background. It is the soothingest, chillest brain reset you'll ever find. But it's gonna be frustrating, but you can't let the frustration get to you. You just take a step back, go play with the cat, walk the dog, go outside, touch some grass, whatever, and let your brain reset and come back and take a look at it again. I would start off simple. Start with a dice roller. Like, learn how to write a function that picks a number between 1 and 6. And then change that function so that you can tell it when you call it, pick me a number between this value and that value. And just start from there. Look for easy victories. And take a look at this idea for this app you want to build and break it down into a whole bunch of little small things for you to learn one at a time. And it's like, okay, so I need to learn how to make something show up on the screen. Cool. Do that first. And then you can take that lesson of how to make something show up on the screen and modify it to make the next thing that's a little bit different show up on the screen. And then you can start putting all the pieces together, but just try to focus on one Lego at a time, if that makes sense. Because programming these days is very much like playing with Legos. And just learn to use one Lego at a time. Know that you're gonna get frustrated, but That's just part of the process. It's not the end of the world. Does that help at all? I don't want you to scare away from this journey. I don't want to scare you away from this journey. It's incredibly rewarding. It's incredibly fun. Um, but at times, it's like playing one of those Dark Souls games, and you just want to throw your controller through the television. Don't do that because those things are expensive. Um, Especially laptops are expensive. But yeah, I mean, one little piece at a time, and keep at it, keep grinding. Uh, Make sure you make time for other things in your life. Don't just like dig into this to the exclusion of everything else, because it's really easy to let that happen. Ask me how I know. Ask my wife how I know. And yeah, just you know, while you're learning this stuff, do make it a habit. Spend a little bit of time every day learning something new, and then practice it and put those something news together with what you're doing. And ChatGPT is your friend here. It it is absolutely your friend. In fact, if you're using Visual Studio Code, there is a free version of GitHub Copilot now that you can actually chat with, and it'll help you get the code that you need to write written and explain what all of it means as you go. It's pretty cool. Again, a little bit of a learning curve, totally worth it. But it's very, very important that if you use an AI assistant or anything like that, you take the time to understand the code that it puts into your projects. Because then, if it doesn't work, but you understand what it's trying to do and you understand what it should be doing, you can fix the code so that it does what it should be doing instead of just I can't figure this out. Like I have a button in my Streamlabs here. Every so often, I got to show the dog. But yeah, work with AI, let Copilot help you, and it's this field is so big, and there are so many different variations of it that it's impossible to know everything. So don't try to. The most important thing is having an understanding of what steps you need to take to get from nothing to something. You'll learn that. And then everything else, all of the stuff in between, like the how you perform each step, that's what the internet's for. Google, ChatGPT, whatever. There's resources. So yeah. So please keep me posted. Like pop in every so often and let me know how your how this learning journey is coming along for you. And actually, that reminds me, I should do a short video on setting up Visual Studio Code and starting a new React project and stuff like that soon. So, yeah. All right. I have gone. Nowadays, the AI is coding, and I don't know how the future is going to get. I think it could help more than damage, especially for. Yes, absolutely. I've been programming for a career for, almost 25 years. AI is not going to replace us. It's not. It's not capable of the kind of thinking that's required for making software happen. It can write code, but you still need a person who knows how to describe the code effectively. And it works better when the person who is describing the code could write the code, but it'd take them longer to type in the actual code than it would to describe. That's where AI is a big win right now. Um, but I don't think the job of software maker is going anywhere anytime soon. It might look a lot different in a few years. But Yeah, yeah. AI is a huge helper. Don't expect it to do everything for you, but it's a great research assistant, and it can be a good teacher once you learn how to talk to it just right. And for goodness sake, remember, please, and thank you. AIs aren't awake yet, but if they ever do wake up and become sentient, I want them to remember those of us who are polite to them and maybe put us into the grinders last. But I actually need to bail. I've run way over time. I've got a ton of boring business crap that I got to do for turning the DM's Familiar into a real live product, and I need to go get to that. So please come back, keep me posted on what you're doing, and when you get more specific questions, maybe we could dive into those together because I'm trying to learn React myself. Um, so yeah, thanks for popping in. Thanks for the follow, and good luck on your journey. So yeah, no, I'm happy to have taken this time at the end of my work session to chat. So yeah, best of luck, and let me know how things go. Take care, Jeressa, and to the rest of you, thanks for hanging out, and be kind to yourselves and happy coding. I'll see y'all tomorrow.